Hi, does everyone hear me? Yeah, hi. Hi, everyone. For those of you in the room, we're going to start again. If you could make your way back to your seats. So for this afternoon session, we're going to kick off with Zella King presenting on how she's been moving operational data science stuff into kind of real-world application. And that's one of the things I think that we kind of struggle with a bit. Build a model in isolation, but getting it into deployment is often tricky. So, Zella.
Thank you for the invitation. So my name is Zella King. I work in the Clinical Operational Research Unit at UCL. My office is a stone's throw in that direction. And my post is currently funded by University College London Hospital Trust, which is literally the next building. Right there's a building with blue glass. And down on the ground floor there's an A&E department. And I'm going to be talking a bit about the challenges of patient flow and how a prototype that I built in 2020 in R has become a Python package that you can now install using pip. So the beginning of the story is before I joined, the hospital invested in Epic as its electronic health record. And some visionary consultants had the idea that they would create a real-time database to get data out of Epic. So it does the typical data warehouse thing where you get your data at midnight. But they wanted to be able to use its potential in real time to see the current state of the hospital. And then they were curious to know if they could get sort of predictive modeling going out of that. So I joined a project where I was asked to build an application that would look at how many patients are in the emergency department, I'm going to call it the ED, how many patients are in the ED right now, and then predict how many of them were going to need admission within a time window of, say, 8 hours. The second starting point is how the hospital runs itself. So behind the building with the blue glass is another building where there is a coordination centre, and they're senior nurses or bed managers. And their job is to kind of interweave the emergency bed demand with known demand from elective patients into the inpatient population and somehow accommodate everybody who needs a bed. And of course, emergency demand is naturally varying, so therefore unpredictable. And the way they do this is 5 times a day they kind of do a very manual process actually with sort of spreadsheets to work out how many beds they've currently got, who might be discharged, and therefore what their capacity is likely to be. And they use daily averages to predict how many emergency beds they're going to need. So that in general, if you have a daily average, that means up till midnight, the picture looks quite rosy in the morning because you haven't admitted that many of your 50, say. But then by the afternoon, the picture starts to look a bit more difficult. So you're perhaps down to, say, you're going to be, you know that you're going to be -5 beds. You're going to be 5 beds short by midnight. But that's kind of late in the day to realize that piece of information. If you'd known it at midday or 10, then senior decision makers are still around. Prioritization could happen differently on the wards. You might get more patients out earlier and therefore address the capacity issues rather than letting them happen into the night. They've made this great investment in Epic, so why not use some of the real-time data? So that's what I did. I developed a simple model that would predict the number of patients needing beds in the next 8 hours using the real-time data. I then got a bit more funding to make that application into a sort of deployed application, and it was just using one single R script. I didn't know anything about software engineering principles, and it used to just populate emails and they would be sent to the bed managers. That was in 2021 that was launched, and there is an application that's been running ever since in different guises in the hospital. So I think that's one of the secrets to success has been actually getting an application going. And it wasn't right for the reasons that I will explain, but it was something, and the bed managers were receiving it. So we wrote up the work, published it, job done, except that fortunately the job wasn't done. So now where we are is it's still the same essential architecture. There's still Epic, there's still a real-time database that can be interrogated to get real-time data out. There's a closed repository of code that generates from that real-time data snapshots of the hospital. I'll say a bit more later about what I mean by snapshots, but essentially it's kind of getting pictures of unfinished visits that you can train models on, and then in real time getting a visit that's still ongoing to predict what's going to happen at the end of it. Then there's a whole bunch of code which is in the public domain in GitHub in a repository called patientflow, and that contains all of the modeling and evaluation sort of functions that I'm going to be talking about. And it's in development, so what I'm showing today is not in the kind of currently released version, but we're working towards doing something which really encapsulates a lot of aspects of patient flow, not just emergency demand. So as I say, it's you can install it from pip. You can see all the code, and I've put quite a lot of time into writing notebooks that step through the higher level functions in the package to explain how it is that we take the input data and make predictions from it. And there's a sort of API reference, so all of the functions have documentation, and all of that is done automated from the doc strings, the comments that are written in the code. This generates the API documentation. And that's all done automatically. Every time I make a release, this is just generated. So the story of how I got from the one sort of quite simple R prototype to this, I think there's three things I wanted to talk about. So the first thing, probably relevant but boring, is that I kept rolling forward onto different contracts. So the first one was a proof of concept in R, as I said, but then I moved on to another project which was also trying to predict real-time resource use in the hospital, but that was on a Python architecture. So essentially I was asked to rewrite the whole thing in Python. I think everything that's done could be done in R. I think it was just one of those kind of forks in the road where we ended up going down the Python route. But it has meant that I've maintained contact with the work, and importantly, with the users of the work. And I think another key to our success has been really getting very deeply to know the senior nurses that I spoke about. Have at this point, I think I've got a bit of Stockholm syndrome. I'm kind of like, I'm now meeting them socially and that kind of thing. But I've really got a deep knowledge of what it is that they actually do when they're making decisions and what information can help them. So as I said, that was the first phase of the output that we used to send them. But what that's really telling them isn't enough for what they need. And there's two ways in which they kind of really wanted to improve on that information. So the flows that we were predicting initially were, yes, the patients in the ED using real-time data, and I've kind of shown those in the box there, and then also predicting patients yet to arrive. Because if you're thinking about an 8 or a 12-hour window, then you should have patients who haven't arrived yet at the hospital but would be admitted if the ED was performing according to the 4-hour targets within your window. So we needed to think about those as well. So we were doing this part, but generally it was just, here's the number of beds you need for the hospital as a whole. And the problem with that is that's no one's particular problem to solve. So where are you going to create the beds? Where's the pressure for them? Which bits of the hospital are going to be under pressure? So what they wanted, what they really needed, was this broken down into clinical areas. So I've highlighted like one, it is literally a tower, and so I've highlighted one floor, which is one ward. Let's say it's the gastrointestinal division. There are 16 beds, let's say, on that floor, and they're all already occupied. What the bed managers really need the gastro team to know is not just the patients in front of them, but also their responsibility for the ones on the way, whether they're in an ambulance, whether they're in a clinic, whether they're coming in as a planned admission. They want to be able to see the whole picture, and that includes outliers. I've shown a couple of beds that are also highlighted. On some other ward, there may be patients waiting in acute medicine to come up. There could be patients in intensive care waiting to step down. But equally, they also want to know how many people are going to leave, so they want to know the outflows as well, in order to get a picture of the net position. In other words, is the tide rising? In which case, do I need to go to the head of the gastro division and say, you are facing real pressures in the next 8 or 12 hours? Because that's when it becomes actionable. As long as it's hospital-wide, it's no one's problem, as I said. And then, of course, you also have to think about the fact that people transfer between specialties. So we needed to allow for those flows as well. So to sort of encapsulate what we now do, we're modelling all of these different flows in. So you've got your patients currently in the gastro specialty, and then we're thinking about not just the demand via the emergency department, also the planned admissions, also other emergency admissions that don't come via the ED front door. And then of those currently in the specialty, how many do you think we're going to leave? Do we think are going to leave? And will they be discharged, or will they become outflows, which then constitute inflows to other subspecialties? I'm not going to speak in detail about how it's done, but the ED predictions are essentially done for the real-time data of patients in the hospital already, machine learning classifier that gives each patient a probability of admission, and then we work out which specialty they're likely to be admitted to based on consult orders that have been placed while they're in the ED. And then for the yet-to-arrive patients, that's more like a mean arrival rate, kind of using historical data. Same for the unplanned admissions. And then planned admissions, just using a mean arrival rate is very simplistic because the hospital actually knows a lot more about who's on the list and who's due to come in tomorrow. So for later, we imagine the planned admissions element of the model becoming more sophisticated. But the great thing about this is it's very modular. So the whole sort of infrastructure, if you like, can be built, and then a modeler later can sort of switch in and switch out a different way of making that particular flow prediction. On the outflow, so we're taking who's in this specialty now, again, using a relatively simple machine learning classifier to predict each patient's probability of discharge, and then using kind of historical probability mapping to say if you're leaving acute medicine, what are your probability of being discharged versus going on to geriatric medicine or any other specialty. So there's a kind of transition matrix that's at play there. So that fixed, or will fix, one of the bed managers' beefs, that they really want the data to be actionable, at a certain level of precision in the hospital, but also they want to know they want to think about it in terms of the hospital's hierarchy. I forgot about this slide. So this slide is just making the point, really, that when you can model the inflows and the outflows, you can then aggregate those distributions together to get a net position. In this case, I've shown it as if the gastro division, I've shown like a positive balance. So it looks like that division is going to be positive compared with now. At the end of my prediction window, we think there will be more beds available. And a bit of a debate, I'm curious for opinions. So should positive be more beds available, or should positive be positively we need to take action? The other thing that we were aiming to achieve with the work is to sort of make it possible to aggregate to different levels of the hospital hierarchy. So they have a series of they have 3 boards, each board has a division, each division has a reporting unit. So we're doing all our prediction at the very bottom level. So these flows are generated at the bottom level, and then we can sort of bring them together for each subspecialty and then present the output at whatever level of the hierarchy the user wants. So that means either the medical director might want information at the medical board level, but then the gastro general manager would obviously want it at that level, and then you can sort of start thinking about the bed managers when they're looking at the picture of the hospital. They've got much more timely, much more accurate information to inform them about the latest kind of state of play. And if you compare that with simply knowing that they're likely to have 1 bed spare at midnight versus I've got real-time data that's taking my inpatient population. It's taking real-time data from patients in the emergency department, and much sort of more powerful signals of whether the tide is rising and whether the tide is falling. And Helena talked about some of the levers this morning, some of the levers that are available to hospitals when they anticipate the tide rising, and if they anticipate the tide rising, the decisions they have to make are very material. So diverting ambulances, cancelling electives, staffing unpaid escalation beds. All of those things cost money for the hospital and they're costly to patients. So the idea is that these kind of decisions can be better informed. We were fortunate, I gave a talk about the emergency demand prediction at Hacker in 2023. I was contacted by a data scientist in Sweden who had colleagues from her emergency department who were interested in doing something similar. So she's now gone forward with the patient flow repository and where they're implementing it there. And it's been really very beneficial to work with another hospital implying it, because it's made me realise what's very specific to UCLH and what is more generic. And interestingly, they've got a much simpler architecture. So they've got a system called Elvis, which she can get data out of in real time. And I was just speaking to Helena earlier, who said they've got Cerner, and Cerner you can kind of also interrogate. So you wouldn't necessarily need that intermediary step that UCLH has had to do out of EPIC. So I'm just really interested to talk to other people about what you have and how feasible this kind of thing might be for you. Because ultimately the implementation challenge is you've got to prepare the data into snapshots of the hospital, unfinished visits, in order then to use your data as input into the patient flow code. So a few kind of closing thoughts about what we're doing, and I'm really keen to explore some of these questions tomorrow at the unconference session. Emily Baldwin from North Central London and I have got a session, talking real time about real-time data modelling. Thank you to Joe Wilson who came up with the title. So yeah, if any of the sort of questions posed on this slide, I think things that you'd like to chat through, then please do come. So I think there's such an obsession with like real-time dashboards in the NHS, and Wes Streeting's got this kind of like probably got some RAG-rated thing on his desk that tells him the state of the English hospitals. But actually, he has no lever to pull to do anything if pressures are anticipated. So thinking about which users actually have some action that can be taken, especially when you're doing predictive modelling. If you're going to tell people the state in 12 hours' time, then which users are going to benefit from real-time data as opposed to sort of historical analysis? So, and then what decisions will they make as a result? So that's kind of how we like to sort of think about these questions in my unit. Modelling with real-time data presents its own kind of challenges. As I said, you need to prepare the data to be sort of in the form of unfinished visits. And also you can't rely on anything that might be retrospectively coded. So it's something like chief complaint or treatment codes, they may be done afterwards, so your models can't use those as inputs, because you won't know those things when someone's just walked through the door. As Chris said, I've done a few different ways of deploying real-time applications. So I'm really interested to chat about that, share my experience, and hear your ideas. And then there's another thing that's really interesting when you think about what we're doing. So the classic sort of academic approach would be to say, how good were our predictions relative to what actually happened? If I predicted 12 beds, did I need 12 beds? But when you're giving these predictions to users in order to change behavior, you would hope that actually something changed. So maybe some action was taken, which means that maybe your predictions will end up being wrong. So not reflecting the reality that actually happened. So it's that kind of feedback loop, which makes evaluation quite interesting. So if any of these topics appeal to you, then see you tomorrow or later. Thank you very much.